Ah, this meeting is being recorded. All right, let's go.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our interview with Claude Eguienta.
Yeah, perfect.
Claude is the CEO of Mimo, a company creating assets and tools to help its users through varying market cycles. Claude is a renowned expert in the financial industry with over 20 years of experience in managing portfolios, leading investment teams, and leading education in finance and investment worldwide. And also, Claude, a very thoughtful, and he believes in blockchain technology, that it is perfect financial and social equalizer, and places an emphasis on financial durability. So, Claude, welcome to our Risk Management Show podcast today.
Thank you. Thank you very much for welcoming me here.
Absolutely. So, Claude, could you tell us, firstly, a short story about yourself, your career path, and what brought you to where you are right now?
All right, sure. The easiest way to put it is that I'm originally a software engineer. I studied programming, software engineering, studied CS, computer science, in multiple countries, like in the US, in China, and in France. And one of the I would say things that I really wanted to focus on as I started to work after university, and even when I was still working, was um, trying to find in what ways we could automate like anything around money, like finding essentially like simplifying working around money the same way we can work around pretty much anything when we're into programming. Because I could see that within banks there's a lot of work to move money around, but as soon as you get outside of systems, it was kind of difficult to move money like as easy as it is like inside of a company or something like that. And cryptocurrency came pretty much at the moment where I left school, so that was pretty perfect. And it was one of the things that cryptocurrency was trying to bring to people, like making it easy to use, spend, and automate for anyone. It was kind of like money for the new age of, money for the digital era. So I decided to work in this area. I didn't only work within the cryptocurrency space. I also worked in the video game industry. I moved to Japan, and I was kind of fulfilling a dream of a childhood dream. But I never left the cryptocurrency space since I got in. And once I started to see the power that cryptocurrency could have, I realized that we could do a little bit more than just making it easy to move around. We could actually like make it easy to, I would say, be easy to access for people who did not really have proper banking infrastructure. And this is what got me to the whole idea of financial inclusion. And I built a startup in this field called Telcoin, like with some of my friends, and we were really focusing on cross-border remittances and financial inclusion. Then, the next step of my journey was to build Mimo, which is a company that focuses on, I would say, like backed assets, in order not to call them stable coins, but for somewhat of a loose definition, we could call them stable coins. Like, because what we do, the most of the products that we build end up looking like stable coins. And we've built first a euro stablecoin to help Europeans get into like have easy access to cryptocurrencies, but we also built like different categories of stablecoin backed by debt. And this is what we're talking about. This is kind of our current focus in the company, the building essentially assets backed by different degrees of debt, different types of debt, different degrees of risk, of debt. Because when it comes to risk management, it came to our realization that people did not necessarily have a great understanding of how like risk can work inside of the outside of the crypto space. And we've decided to kind of like embark on a journey of education of our users, and this is kind of what got us to come here today. So essentially, yeah, I'm a software engineer that helps people like use cryptocurrency better and get people to access digital money. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. So I believe that we will have a very thoughtful conversation on this topic of real world assets, intangible versus tangible, and why there is such a hot topic in decentralized finance right now, because we also hear the stable coin backed by some company in with no kind of resources, and then it's some people are very worried that stable coin may be kind of system kind of fault in this
in the industry.
blockchain system industry. But you will explain us later. But
of course,
maybe for the start, can you explain what is real world assets and how can they bring more people to use blockchain technology?
So, okay, let's do a couple of things first. I will start by the first part of your question and explain like what are real world assets. Then I will come to the second part because this one can be more of a topic of conversation. So the first part, what are real world assets? We call real world assets in the context of blockchain assets that are not fully native to the cryptocurrency world. Because when you take something like Bitcoin, it's an asset that is generated what we call on chain. Like the Bitcoin never exists outside of the chain. Like same with things like Ethereum and all those tokens that you can see around. Those are what we call like crypto assets. But what we call real world assets are it's not necessarily that the other ones aren't real. It's more that we use them as a way to indicate whoever's listening that those assets are not native to the chain, so they carry a certain amount of risk because somebody has to say that, well, this asset that exists outside of the chain, so off chain, is now being represented on chain, and I'm going to guarantee that it exists here. So it kind of breaks the whole concept of blockchain trustlessness, but it adds the convenience of being able to move off-chain assets as easily as you can move on-chain assets. Because when it comes to convenience, moving on-chain assets the convenience of moving on-chain assets is pretty much unmatched. It works 24/7. It's very easy, it's very affordable, and very safe when it comes to, again, the way the transactions work. But off-chain assets can be difficult to move. So this is where the whole concept of real world assets came in. It was more to expose people who want to stay on chain and want to have the convenience of the on-chain world, but want to be exposed to the off-chain assets. So, well, real world assets are just this. Now, to the other part of the question, like, would it help people come to the cryptocurrency world? That's more of a topic of discussion because, well, the people who are not in the crypto today already have access to those real world assets. So it's not necessarily that it will attract them. Oh, well, I can have gold on and off chain. Now that gold is on chain, I'm going to go on chain too. It doesn't really work like that. It's more about like helping those who are on chain have a better experience. But what we can consider as well is that if we are to agree that being on chain is more convenient for so many things, then we can be, well, maybe now that those real world assets are moving on chain, it can make sense to spend more of my time on chain, like more of my money on chain. And this could be how you attract more users. When what I say is more about like the volatility of most native on-chain assets is very high. Like we're talking about like volatility swings. Like only yesterday, Bitcoin took 11% up. Like which type of big assets moves so fast? And this is nothing crazy in the cryptocurrency world. You have assets moving 35% every day in any direction. It's a very wild. And for attracting a lot of people, you would need a little bit less volatility, or you would need like a little bit more, I would say, tangible assets. Things like maybe real estate, even though it's another topic. You would also consider things like maybe commodities. You could consider gold. Could consider securities, and bring them on chain. And once you have those things on chain, well, you can secure them in a way that you can secure any cryptocurrency asset. So using, like, I would say, very advanced technology compared to storing them, like safeguarding them at home. You can have access to all those benefits. And now, like, again, it begs the question of, will it attract new people? It could, but this is not necessarily the reason why we've built this. We've built this to make the experience better. If it attracts new people, it's great. If it doesn't, it's still going to be adding a lot of value to people who are already there, because now you could stay on chain and own a lot of things on chain without having to to manage things through banks or like a custodians and all financial institutions that require you to essentially, I mean, that can only work during weekday until 5 p.m. and that's it.
Yeah. So I heard, for example, if I have a gold, I
Yeah.
have some company that they kind of tokenize in gold. For example, you don't have now, if you have a 1 kilo gold, of you can tokenize it via this company and put it on a blockchain. Right. There is some kind of this what you mean by a real world asset put into the chain, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, typically you would not be the one tokenizing your own gold. It would be some, I would say, centralized entity that buys a lot of gold, tokenizes it, and then you buy the tokens from that company. So because most people do not necessarily own gold, right? So it's I mean, own gold, physical gold at home. So it's essentially just another way, the same way you would have like a access to gold by just having some promissory note from the company like holding gold without the crypto. You would have the same thing as a form of a transferable token in the form of a real world asset. So the real world asset would be pretty much what you said, except like in practice, it comes with a centralized entity that is buying a lot of gold, tokenizing it, and selling to their customers.
Yeah, but the risk when I hold, for example, if someone holds a gold,
right?
It doesn't kind of carries risk of counterparty, right? Of course, he carries risk of burglar or some kind of stealing possibilities, but
Of course.
there is no counterparty risk. If there is tokenization, I think there is counterparty risk where you don't know with this blockchain, all this systematic automation, and you also don't know the third party who tokenizes it, so you are getting more in the kind of more risk, from my understanding.
You're absolutely right. You like when you used tokenized assets, you are trading convenience for a couple of risks. Like one is counterparty risk. Another one would be smart contract risk in general, because most of these tokenized assets are into smart contracts. So if the smart contracts get exploited, then you could essentially like maybe lose access to some of your nice and precious tokens. If your security in the chain is compromised, you have your wallets and you have like everything holding your cryptocurrency. If that gets compromised, you would be in trouble as well. Even though in general it's not as much as being compromised as more as maybe stolen from you or anything like that. So we're back to the risk of the burglar that you just mentioned before, and the other risk. I mean, the best way I would say to that the industry has been dealing with this is to leverage the regulatory space, like those custodians of gold that existed before cryptocurrency would just like give you a title and say, well, thank you, and now you own a little bit of gold in our safe behind, right? And in crypto, it's pretty much the same. Like instead of a title that they give you, they would give you a token. So you have the same amount of counterparty risk as what you would have with a traditional gold custodian, like a bank. So essentially, what the industry is doing here is matching the risk that you would have with a traditional bank, except it would trade a couple of things on the way. Like a bank would have a few, banks are still companies that could freeze your account, could still like deal with you a certain way, and this and that. That crypto tokens work, I mean, in a very different way. There are ways to make crypto tokens act 100% like what a bank does, but in general, they don't. And you would also trade the security of the bank and the insurances of the bank for security of a smart contract and the insurances of a smart contract. So you would have, I would say, a similar degree of risk, but those risks would not be would not be the exact same. It's more like the same category of risk, and that's pretty much the what it goes like. Therefore, just to walk you through the demand of what we have today, a lot of people that want to have access to our tokenized assets actually consider that it lowers the risk for them because they feel more confident being able to own the asset themselves than by giving them to a bank. Cryptocurrency works in a way that you are responsible for safeguarding your assets. And when you're in an environment where you cannot necessarily trust your bank for safeguarding your assets because your bank would have a tendency to seize funds because of an unstable regime or a couple of things like that, that could be a way. You also have the issue with transfers. Like bank would sometimes limit the transfers that you can do of your assets for either anti-money laundering because of policies or even because of whatever flag that they would see in their management of funds because of their risk management. Like cryptocurrency, once you hold tokens, you're the sole responsible person for moving them around. So for a certain category of users, the risk perceived by holding real world assets as opposed to dealing with banks could be seen as lower. Again, it depends on their level of education in the space, and it depends on their own category. It's more about like providing more options to people so they can decide. Now, if you compare that to holding your bullion at home, it's again like a whole different category of things. Like as you say, like you're dealing like with a counterparty risk as opposed to a burglar risk. And then like once you hold your bullion at home, transferring it to your sister that lives in another country could be slightly difficult. It's you're trading convenience for risk, which is very often the case when you go from one medium to another.
Yeah. So what I see from my perspective, so the users of your system, I say you might not agree, but can be kind of crooks who don't want to go to the regulatory financial system. Maybe some oligarchs from some countries that they cannot trade with other world, so they can tokenize their cash or whatever, and maybe some terror gangs that so that what you say that they kind of can bypass anti-money laundering. So what do you say about this?
Oh, it's I think they represent a very bad fit for the specific real world asset industry. Like, let's say if you're a crook or a terrorist or whoever, using like I would say native on-chain assets might be a little bit way easier even like because you don't even have to buy them. You can like generate them by mining or any such thing. And once you have these assets, you can freely move them around and then get value from them in such a way that nobody has to know whatever you're doing. With real world assets, the chain is very different because I mean, how do you how do you get the value from a real world assets and how do you access them? Typically, you go through decentralized entities like in the beginning and to decentralized entities in the end, which means that you have to go through like a rather rigorous KYC. You have to go through AML checks at the door instead of having the AML check at every single transfer. And again, this is depending on how your real world assets are tokenized. Not every real world asset is tokenized the same way. But instead of having them at every transfer, you have them at the door of redemption and access, which makes it a pretty bad fit for a crook or an oligarch or anything like that. Because if you take the case of our own company at Mimo, if you are in any form of list, if you would be a red flag in the bank, you're a red flag with us. That's the same thing. So we're not really facilitating the access, and that's still most of the companies in the industry. I can't speak for my competitors or I would say my industry friends, but in general, this is like the way the real world assets are working on chain. You gain a lot of convenience because of owning token and being able to safeguard them yourself and still moving them even when the banks are closed. But you don't have to. I mean, you still have to show like to show that you're a responsible member of the society when you get in. We still have the same amount of restriction as a bank. For example, we can't onboard people from the sanctions list, like people who come from countries that are sanctioned by our regulator. still, off the map for us. It's unfortunate in a certain way, but it's also fortunate because it allows people to trust us. Like they know that we're not a company here to help crooks. We're a company here to help people who are looking for convenience find it.
Yeah, fantastic. So let's discuss the following topic, because last few years we had a lot of we heard about a lot of scandals in this DeFi world, right? About Celsius and FTX, and how. What do you think about it, and how? Because normal people who are not 100% in this business, maybe just don't want to touch it anymore, because some people wanted to earn a lot of yield when there was a 0% at banks. They say, oh, go to Celsius, and they, what is it, 30% annual. Yeah, when they kind of loan it to other cryptocurrencies. So it's kind of a crazy world. So what do you think is going on this trade DeFi, or what world of blockchain at this moment?
That's I think this is a very good question, because it goes back to one of the very reasons why we started this whole business line. I will start by just like stopping you a little bit in your tracks, because everything you mentioned, like the FTX and the Celsius and all those things, are actually not DeFi. Those are what we call in the industry, we call them CeFi. CeFi for centralized finance, because it's those are systems where you give your money to someone in their custody, they do whatever they want with it, and then you hope for the best. The amount of regulatory scrutiny that those people have to abide by is very low, but unfortunately, most users didn't care. This is what led to this gigantic wipeout of the industry, because when the yield is too good, a lot of people care very little about the actual risk. And this is why you're running such a podcast, because we all trying, you, us, and a lot of people in the industry a lot of us are trying to educate people in that essentially there's no such thing as free lunch. But you can only educate as many people that are willing to listen, right? So that's for us something that was a form of a trigger. When we saw the collapse of Celsius and all those things, like we're like, well. People jumped into this because they were looking for yield. There was no safe asset yielding anything, but a lot of people in the traditional markets have had access to very high yields. It's just that they were taking a risk that they understood. Like they were maybe like in hedge funds, or they were in various like complex strategies, very complex structured products, or any such things. And they're educated and they're going into this. But people in crypto like have had access to yield by clicking a magic button, click here, get yield type of thing. And there was such a thing as obfuscation of risk, which is, in my opinion, the most toxic thing that can ever happen. Like, it's good to abstract complexity, but it's not good to obfuscate risk. And we do believe that we should educate customers and users to limit this type of scenario. So we felt like, why don't we build a machine that exposes people in crypto to the type of yield that Celsius could have given them, except this time they will understand what's in the box. And if it goes to zero, they will know why. Because maybe it was a binary option strategy against something that makes absolutely no sense to bet against, but they will know. They will play the same game as people have been playing for a very long time, but they can access yield, they can know. Maybe if we do this, we can like essentially bring back like a form of a sense of responsibility in people, as in, yes, we can access yield, but now it's like that because Celsius and Luna and whatever, we're giving you insane yields without telling you how, or by lying to you. Now we would just be like, look, we're gonna find a good auditor, like a big reputable firm that guarantees you that whatever you put your money in is a certain type of asset. And this certain type of asset is gonna allow you to yield or not, and you're gonna be exposed to, you're gonna be like somewhat like way more directly exposed to something that yields. And that was one of the ideas that allows us to start this project. So it's there's a lot of stigma in the industry that we believe that we as an industry are responsible for, and we are also responsible for, trying to bring better products that can erase that stigma. Now, like, a lot of people will not touch cryptocurrency with a ball, but we believe that maybe if we make better products, if we do good things, if we educate users, we can get people back in, because they will realize, oh, that was a scam, but this is not one. This is just the same thing as you would get, like, if you go see, let's say, some form of broker or any such thing, except we can even, because we're in crypto and because of the size of the company and because of maybe a couple things that we can think about because of the structure of our company, we can propose the type of assets that you could not even find at your broker. And now we're starting to add value, like above what you can find in traditional banking or traditional finance. And this is where we are right now. We're tokenizing things such as Bitcoin mine. Like, we are not, like, instead of buying Bitcoin, why not like own a share of a mine, for example? And that's a form of a mix of it's still a real world asset, but that has some form of indirect exposure to a digital asset. And this is something that most of our customer base would understand. So it yields. When it pays, you understand why, because you know what Bitcoin mining is and this and that. But if we can tokenize a Bitcoin mine, we could also tokenize a mine of lithium, or like any form of exploitation anywhere. And little by little, we can let people in good yield and outside of those terrible things that plagued the industry last year. We're not the only ones doing that, but everybody has a slightly different way of bringing this. And again, it all comes down to risk management in the end, because this is what we believe. So we believe that as long as people are well aware of why they're making the money, then we can bring a good story, we can help them make money, and we can use the plethora of tools that are in crypto to help them hedge those risks. Because the issue with, again, something like Celsius is that people were not even looking at this from a risky perspective. So they were not even looking to hedge themselves. There was like nothing. You put money in and hope for the best. But now if you have something and well, this thing will go up if that happens. This thing will go down if this happens. Now that I know how it would go down and why it would go down, I can look for a hedging strategy. I can look for more. And transparency will be the key to hedging strategy, to the creation of hedging strategies. And if we can expose people to the assets and the hedging strategies, then we can have very complex, I would say more complex financial products. But again, complexity might be the price to pay for high yield, because as I said before, there is no free lunch.
Yeah, it's a difficult topic for first kind of people listen to it, but I think it is very useful to understand this world, because our world is most kind of traditional people who are not in the blockchain, but now you are kind of putting the real world assets to the blockchain. And you said you can even put the real mine of lithium to the blockchain, but why not just issue shares? Because there are a lot of shares of mining companies, so they are also volatile. Now you put a blockchain lithium mine on blockchain, it will be volatile 10 times more.
No, so I mean that's a good point to bring. Like, if you put an asset on chain, it's not going to add volatility to it. It's going to have the same price on and off chain. But what you can do once in on-chain, I mean, let me give you an example. Like, you have things called like decentralized lending platforms. They work in such a way that you deposit a crypto asset on one side and you can lend another crypto asset on the other side. The platform manages the liquidation. You can lend or borrow. Let's say you borrow, you deposit $1 million worth of lithium mine shares, for example, and you borrow like, $500,000 from the platform. So at this point, like, what happens if the price of your lithium mine shares drop? The platform will look at the price and open your position for liquidation. So then, like, somebody in this market will have to buy your shares as they go down. So the platform itself is secure. So your loan of $500,000 is always secure. This is something that is very well established in the cryptocurrency industry. Those are peer-to-peer, I would say, lending marketplaces. We call them money markets. And being on chain allows you to benefit from these money markets. So like a strong difference between buying shares of a mine in the real world and buying those shares in the tokenized form is that, well, as tokens, it allows you to use a lot of these tools within the cryptocurrency industry, such as those lending platforms that are fully peer-to-peer and do not like require those are not companies. Those are pure like protocols. You deposit, clicking something, you borrow, clicking something else. Those are very simple to use software. You have like plethora of tools that have been built by the crypto industry in order to allow you to maximize the liquidity that you can get out of your assets. And this is somewhat missing from the traditional finance world, because what you have in the cryptocurrency world is a world designed by people who would like to make software that automates the movement of money, which is not necessarily the way the industry of banking has been designed. So when you leverage software that is made to leverage assets in a transparent manner, well, bringing a lot of assets to it start to make a lot of sense. And I can give you an example of that I'm using myself. I bought some treasury bills, put them in one of these protocols, and I borrowed some currency against it. Therefore, I'm leveraging my treasury bills. I'm still getting my yield from my treasury bills, but then I can borrow something else as long as I can borrow for cheaper than what my treasury bills are paying me. I'm in a good position, and that's fine. And we were taking the example of a lithium mine, but it could be pretty much anything. And this is one of the reasons why it makes sense. Again, this boils down to risk again, because when you conduct such an operation, now you have to manage your liquidation risk. Like if you go for a lending platform, you have liquidation risk. If you go for an exchange, you have the exchange and smart contract risk and counterparty risk. You have, you keep going. Everywhere you go, you will have a different risk, but at least you have the choice. So it becomes a problem of education. Do you understand the risk? Have you been trained to understand this risk? If yes, then you can onboard. And now it becomes a documentation problem. Like we want to make sure that everybody understands. We want to make sure that everybody has the good amount of education when they use our platforms. So we document, we train, and that's what we do. But I can't speak for the entire industry, but this is what I believe in.
All right, interesting. So we have I think we're already out of time, but I will have a few questions for you because it's so interesting topic. So let's summarize. If someone who is listening to this interview would like to walk away with one or two major takeaways, what would it be?
So the first one would be that real-world assets on chain do not magically prevent you from, get you off the whole concept of due diligence. If you buy real-world assets on chain, you must still conduct a right amount of due diligence, as due diligence on the assets, like understanding what you're buying, but also due diligence on whoever is issuing these assets. So because there are different categories of risk for onboarding real-world assets, and you might want to understand those risks before you get in that space. Another takeaway, maybe I should have said that first, but yes, real-world assets are a way to expose you to like everything that is not happening in the crypto industry, while still benefiting from the nice convenience of the crypto industry. But then you share the risk. So real-world assets, in my opinion, are about choice, or can be about safety, can be about security. What they are not about is crime, evasion, and all those things that we mentioned. So yes, use real-world assets if you want to benefit from the convenience of on-chain, and you do not want to be bothered by the inconvenience of a traditional financial system. It's about choice. It's about it's not about reducing volatility. It's about embracing it. It's because if an asset is volatile off-chain, it will be volatile on-chain. It is not a magic bullet, but it is about convenience. And this is an industry that is growing, will continue growing, because again, it adds liquidity to assets that could sometimes not have liquidity in the traditional finance, or it could add exposure to certain assets to people who only knew about their native traditional, their crypto native assets. It opens more doors, and cryptocurrency was always about opening doors. This is one more of them.
All right, fantastic. So, Claude, that were all my questions. Perhaps if I forgot to ask you something and you would like to add that will benefit to our audience, please go ahead.
Well, maybe I will explain again. Like, we're in a risk management podcast, and I think it's a good fit for talking about this topic. If you want to learn more about how we manage risk at Mimo within what we're building called the Kuma protocol, like the name of our platform is called the Kuma protocol. Go on kuma.bond. You will see the type of assets that we tokenize. You will see the risk associated with each asset, and then maybe, if you're interested, go and try out some of these assets. Like, try holding a little bit of treasury bills, for example. Try playing around with it, and for the first time, you would have something that you can play around, not something that will just sit in a banking app, but something that you can actually move left and right and hold, and try to benefit from cryptocurrency. And if you want to understand which risk you're running when dealing with us, you can read our terms and conditions. You can read the regulation that we abide by. That you can see everything that we're subject to. Yeah, you can really see the type of framework that we operate with, and you can look at our audits. And this is something I actually invite people to do. Like, people tend to put those things in the footer. Like, well, look at them. Like, you need to understand those things. You need to be able to look at audits. You need to be comfortable with that, because embracing the cryptocurrency world means coming in essentially a form of a Wild West, and we're just trying to make this West a little bit less wild. So that's it.
All right, fantastic. So the Kuma.bond?
Bond. Yes, bond. Kuma, KUMA.BOND, bond. Yeah, like a treasury bond or something like that. Kuma.bond.
The Kuma.bond. Okay, interesting. All right, Claude, thank you very much. It was very interesting podcast, and I hope we will continue cooperation with you, maybe putting you on other podcasts, explaining some specific topics in the future.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Have a great day in the Netherlands.
Yeah, you too. Stop.